Being in charge of decisions is awesome, but being in charge of outcomes is wearisome. In this week's talk, we'll show you how remembering who's really in charge can help you keep your energy aimed at the right things.
How many of you guys remember the make and model of the first car that you owned? I don't mean Dad's car. I mean the first one that was your car. Anybody remember that? Joe's a car guy. Joe, what was your first car? Shout it out. 55 Chevy. All right. Brandy, what about you? 97 Civic. We remember a lot about that first car. Cheryl, what was the interior like on your first car? It was great. She remembers the color. Yeah. Rick, what kind of music could you play in your first car? Radio, cassette? Just a radio. It's amazing how, okay, no shade. For some of you guys, it's been a minute since you got your first car. It's like tin cans and Junkyard Mountain somewhere. But you remember really well. You ever consider why do you have such fond and powerful memories of something like that? I think for a lot of us, it's because that was the first time in life where you really owned something big, something major. You got to do whatever you wanted with that car. My first car was a 97 red Chevy S10 pickup. And it was fun. And I could do anything I wanted. I could listen to whatever kind of music I wanted in my truck. I could decorate my truck. I could put whatever flavor of the little hanging tree thing on the rearview mirror. I do whatever I want. It's my truck. I don't have to ask a friend for a ride. If I want to go to the mall, I just get in my truck and I go. Something exhilarating about ownership, about self-determination. All of us enjoy that. And self-determination is good. It's a good thing. It's part of your design from God. But self-determination sometimes can make us lose sight of an old truth that if we lose sight of it, it causes us to burn out all of our energy pursuing the wrong things. And I want to bring that old truth out today and look at it fresh and new again, so that we can get the value from it again. Now, last week, if you missed last week, no big deal. You can catch it on any of our social media platforms. But last week, we presented this idea that truth is still true, no matter how old it is. If something was ever objectively true, it's still true today. If God, who has all of the facts, ever spoke something and said, this is the way it is, it's still the way it is today. And I have a vintage truth for you. We're going to put it up on the screens. Write this down in your notes. Here's the old truth. God is the owner in life, and you are a manager. Ultimately, no matter what you build, no matter what you grow, no matter what you buy, no matter what you achieve, no matter what you do, everything that you do is made up of Lego bricks, but He owns all the bricks. God is the owner, and you are a manager. The Bible's really clear about this. Psalm 24:1 says, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all of its people belong to Him. Many of you guys, you hear that and you're like, doesn't everybody know that? Right? Duh. I'm not adding any new information to you guys. You know that God made the earth, but it's something that historically was a little bit more universally understood and people lived by it. There was once a time, stop and consider this for a minute. There was once a time when our government got together and said, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that humans are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among those the pursuit of life, liberty. Okay, so all of this major important document in the United States, you ever consider? They said, this is self-evident. We shouldn't even have to they don't even justify it. They're like, duh, everybody knows that God made everyone and that we are responsible to him. It's an old idea. And we live in an era where you can own a lot of stuff. You can be in charge of a lot of stuff. You can customize. You ever notice that? You can customize more today than you ever could before. But all of that ownership and all of that idea in our society that says, follow your dreams. If you try hard enough, you can become whatever you want. Don't let anyone ever tell you that you can't X, Y, and Z. You prove them wrong, because that's what we do in America. Those things are good to an extent. But ultimately, you may have found this out already if you've lived long enough. No matter how hard you try, you can't make all your dreams come true. No matter what the cartoon in the 90s told you, you can't do it because you're not ultimately the owner. And write this down in your notes. Outcomes are for owners. You can't guarantee the outcome that you want because outcomes are for owners. Frank is an owner. Okay? Frank, wave at everybody. This is Frank. If you haven't met him, he's a cool guy. If you sit in Frank's section, you probably have met him. He's our section host there. Frank, I'm going to ask you a question. All right, Frank owns a business, heating and air and plumbing. Okay, so Frank, let's say that tomorrow, business is good. Let's say that tomorrow you hire a new plumber. I got to have more guys. Would you expect this new plumber to be responsible for, just personally, for making the business profitable? Yeah, by himself. No. Is he personally responsible for making sure that the taxes get paid and that everybody's withholding? Is he responsible for making sure that you have a good market share in Pekin? And no. Is he responsible for making sure that everybody gets their Christmas bonus or a cost of living raise or an adjustment? No. What's he responsible for? Plumbing, right? Frank is the owner. So ultimately, Frank is the guy responsible for the business being healthy or not. And you are ultimately not an owner, you're a manager. If you really want to go old school, the old school word for this is you are a steward. Anybody grow up in church and hear that? Steward? Anybody suddenly get a pain in your wallet because you think this is a giving talk? It's not. Okay. Usually we reserve stewardship for we need your money. God needs your money, and he does. That's not today's talk. Ultimately, you are a manager. Now, owners are occupied with coming up with the right outcomes. Managers, you're not in charge of the outcome. Here's what you're responsible for. Write this down in your notes. You're responsible for effort. As a manager, you can't guarantee the outcome. You're just supposed to give effort. And all through the Bible, there's this beautiful idea of partnership between God and humanity, where God says, here's the stuff I want to accomplish, but instead of doing it all myself, because I want it done right, I'm going to bring Brock and I'm going to bring Brian and I'm going to bring Lola and I'm going to bring all these people on my team and I'm going to do the stuff I want to accomplish through them, but no one of them is personally the Savior. So their job is to just give effort, to just work. Philippians 2:12 says, work hard to show the results of your salvation. And that's one verse. We could do a whole bunch. But all through the Bible, there's this idea that you have to work as a manager. In Matthew 25, Jesus tells a parable. You should read the whole thing sometime. He tells a parable about managers that did give effort and ones who didn't. And he used 3 words to describe a manager who didn't give effort. Wicked, lazy, useless. Ouch. God is nice, but he doesn't pull punches sometimes. How many of you guys want to get to heaven when you die? You want to step before the Lord and he says, hey, welcome to heaven, you lazy, wicked, useless person. How many want that? Not me. I don't want that. So you have to give effort. That's your job. Now, let me give a balancing statement here, because if the guy says, hey, you're not responsible for the good things happening in your life. The easy thing is to say, oh, that means that God has to make all the good happen to me. I just sit back and wait for heaven. Well, that's not how it is either. Put this down in your notes. You can't control outcomes, but you can influence them. You can't guarantee a good outcome, but you sure better try to influence a good outcome. Let me give you some examples. Can you guarantee that you will not develop diabetes at some point in your life? No. Can you make decisions that will raise your likelihood of not developing diabetes? Yes. Okay. Can you guarantee that when you retire, you will have enough to live comfortably? No. There's no telling what the market will do. Maybe you invest in something that goes under. You can't guarantee it, but you absolutely can make decisions to influence that outcome. That outcome could be much more likely. Can you guarantee that you'll have a good marriage? No, but can you influence it? Yes. Can you guarantee that your kids will serve the Lord when they grow up? No. Can you influence them that way? Yes. You guys get the balance here? We're pursuing something that's good, and I absolutely care. If you hire a new plumber, Frank, he should care if the business is profitable or not. He should absolutely care if you have a good market share in Pekin. He should care if there's a Christmas bonus or if his taxes get withheld. But ultimately, that's not his job. That's your job. His job is to be a plumber. Okay? God is the owner. You're the manager. So in light of that, here's what that old truth means for you. And this is me too, man. I am preaching into the mirror on this one. That means if he's in charge and he controls the big things, then here's what you need to do. Write this down in your notes. You need to stop worrying. Would that it were so simple. You need to stop worrying about the stuff that's his job, because ultimately you can't fix it anyway. It's wasted effort. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your energy. Listen to what Jesus said about it. Famous passage, Luke chapter 12. Jesus said, okay, I want you to listen closely to the words he chooses. Jesus says, can all your worries add a single moment to your life? Now, that's a rhetorical question, but what's the answer to that question? No. You can't add a single day just by worrying about it. Listen to what he says. He says, if worry can't accomplish a little thing like that, wait a minute. A little thing? How many of you believe that adding time to your life is a little thing? That seems like a big thing. Ethan, yeah, you just wait. The older you get, that'll be a bigger thing in your mind, okay? That seems like a big deal, okay? Watch what he's doing. Remember, this is God who has come down to earth to talk to humans face to face so he can explain and unpack who he is and his perspective. Put that back up on the screen there, Kate. Okay, he's giving perspective. He's saying, oh, adding time to your life? Yeah, to me, that's a little thing. See how much bigger my stuff is than yours? Jesus said, if you can't even accomplish a little thing like that, what's the use of worrying over bigger things? He said, you're wasting your time. That's my stuff. That's the realm of God's stuff. What the ultimate outcome is of the big stuff in life. Your job is to just be a manager. And here's what that means. Write this down in your notes. If it's out of your control, it's out of your lane. It's not your job to make it happen because outcomes are for owners. No matter how hard you plumb one job, you can't make the business profitable just by one job. You can influence that direction, but ultimately there are some bigger factors going on. You can't guarantee that you will be in a relationship next Christmas. I don't want to be alone. Okay, but you can't guarantee that. You can't guarantee that America will be a moral nation as we move forward. You can't guarantee that war will not break out and your sons will not get drafted to go over and get shot in a foreign country. You can't guarantee any of that. So if it's out of your control, it's out of your lane. Outcomes are for owners. Now, this is the part in the talk where you should expect, because I would expect, that the the talk turns this way and we go, so bless your heart. You're just carrying all the weight. You don't need to. Just Christmas doesn't have to be so stressful. Just let Jesus just breathe peace and just, okay. And that is true. Carrying stuff that you weren't designed for will absolutely wear you out. But this is not a bless your heart talk. As I was preparing this week, the Lord showed me something from Jesus' words. I had never noticed this dynamic before. Okay? When you worry about stuff that only God can do, when you take something that's meant to be for owners and you say, I kind of want to be an owner, I want to worry about that. When you do that, you're actually being a bad manager. You're failing at the manager task, and here's why. Because you are taking your time and your energy and your effort and you're putting it in the wrong place. And you're using it up on stuff that doesn't get anywhere. You don't want to be a bad manager because that's your role. You're not being graded on whether you're a good owner, whether you have good outcomes. You're being graded on whether you have good effort. And you have a limited amount of energy. So this is interesting. Last night, I slept horribly. Any of you guys walk in here a little bit tired today? Anybody, even the special X brew of coffee is not enough to make you feel really great, okay? We know what it's like to be physically tired, but how many of you guys know you can be physically fine and you can be emotionally exhausted? Anybody ever be emotionally exhausted? Anybody, the emotions are fine, especially students, okay? Any guys ever finish like a long test and you're like, I am intellectually exhausted. I can't even do math anymore, okay? I'm worn out. There are many different kinds of energy. You start each day with a limited pool of energy. And once you use it up, you're done. Some of you guys, okay, Roger's working overtime. Roger, by the time you get home, you're everything drained and exhausted, right? So, if God's role is to be the owner and your role is to be the manager, but you use all of your energy trying to be an owner, then you don't have the energy you need still in the tank to manage well. Listen to what Jesus says as he continues in Luke chapter 12. Okay? He says, don't be concerned about what to eat and what to drink, right? And when he says this, let me just help you understand. He's not saying like, just randomly pick stuff at Taco Bell. He's saying, these guys were like, I hope next week that I can eat. I hope next month there's enough food for my family. Okay? They're stressing over whether they're going to make it. He says, don't worry about such things. Okay? These things, watch this, look at what he says, dominate the thoughts of unbelievers. Now, I actually had a bunch of research. I was going to bore you with research, and then I realized that was kind of boring. If you really want the studies, I can show you. Study after study after study have shown that ruminating over what might happen, worrying about whether you've done enough for the outcome you're looking for, it affects your sleep and affects you physically. It drains you emotionally. It leads to intellectual fatigue. Worrying about that stuff drains your energy. And it's almost like Jesus knew that a long time before the studies, because he said, if you're worried about all that stuff that dominates the thoughts of unbelievers, if your thoughts are dominated by that, you're not thinking about anything else. He said this happens all over the world, but your Father already knows your needs. And so here's what you need to do. Instead, he says, guys, just seek the kingdom of God. We did a whole series on that this fall. If you didn't hear it, you want to go back and listen. It's really going to help you. Okay? Just do the stuff in front of you to do. Just stay in your lane. Do that above all else, and then God will give you everything you need. He'll make sure the outcome is where it needs to be. But you've got to spend your energy in the right area. So write this down. Here's what happens when you worry about God's job. You divert energy from your job. There's not as much left for the stuff that you need to do. Okay, let's go back to Frank's plumber. Frank's the owner. Let's say he hires a new plumber. Frank, let's say that you send this new plumber to a job, and he's there all day. He's working overtime. He's been there 10 hours, and he finally comes back to the office, and you're like, man, that must have been a tough job. What took so long? And he says, well, here's the thing, Mr. Shearer. I didn't actually spend any of my time fixing the plumbing because when I opened up the cabinets, I realized these are kind of old, messed up cabinets. And I've always kind of had a passion for cabinets. And I thought, I don't know if there are really good cabinet companies in town, but we could start one together. And I started sketching up plans for cabinets. And I started working on a business plan for how we could make a cabinet company successful. And I even came up with a couple cool names. And I drew a logo. And I spent all day long planning out this awesome new business. Now, I don't have the money to start this business. But if Covenant wants to be an investor in this new business, we could make some money together. Okay? It's a lot of fun thoughts. What did this guy not do the whole time he was at work? Fix the plumbing. You're going to have a really angry customer. You get a 1-star review on Google. He just spent the whole time sketching in a notepad. Didn't fix anything. My sink still won't drain. And here's what happened. Okay, that guy's not going to work for you very long if he keeps doing that. Why? Because he was freelancing on company time. You are paying him to be a plumber, and instead he's trying to be an owner. But that's not his job. And he spent all of his time that you provided and time that you were paying for, he spent all of it trying to be an owner instead of doing the thing that he needed to do, which is be a manager. Outcomes are for owners. And you don't want to be somebody who's caught freelancing on company time. Jesus said, why are you worrying so much about stuff you can't control? It's useless. It's a waste of time, and it will dominate your thoughts. Instead, just focus on what's in front of you. So as Ethan comes back up, I wonder for you, what are the things dominating your thoughts this Christmas season? What are the big things that in the back, it's not in the front of your mind, but in the back of your mind, what are those big things that you're like, man, I hope this works out? Because don't get me wrong, you should care about the big stuff. But there's a difference between caring about it and trying so hard to force it or worrying so hard that it won't turn out. Some of you guys, this might be the first Christmas in a while that you're alone and you're lonely. And that is heartbreaking. And maybe some of you are worried, am I going to have anybody to share Christmas with next year? Am I going to always be alone? Is this my lot in life? But worrying about it won't actually fix it. And if you drain all the energy, it might make it more difficult for you. You should be investing in making friends and joining groups, but you're not if you're spending all the time worrying. Maybe your buddy from high school texted you and said, I can't believe it. We've been married 26 years and she's divorcing me. I can't believe it. I didn't think this could happen. And this thought gets in the back of your mind. What if my wife leaves me? What if she gets tired of putting up with my dirty laundry that I don't put away and the dishes that are not stacked? What if she leaves me? And instead of spending your energy serving your wife and loving your wife and listening to your wife, all of the energy is like, oh no, what if she leaves? Oh no, what if she leaves? It actually makes it harder to be a good husband. It's hard. Students, if you haven't worried about what you're going to do when you finish high school, you might need to think about that. It's stressful. Should I go to college? What degree should I get? Should I take on debt? What happens if I do take on debt? Maybe I should just go into the workforce. What kind of job is even going to be around for a while? And if I get this job now and inflation keeps going up, am I even going to be able to afford to pay the bills? I want to actually have a nice house. I want to own something. I want to be able to go on vacation with my kids. I want to do the life that maybe I didn't grow up with, but I don't know if I can make that happen. And I'm so nervous when I come to take this test because all of my hopes and dreams and futures riding on if I get this math question right. And not only are you worn out, but all of your energy is going into worrying instead of going into being a good student. Let me share mine. I have two things that I am bad at being a manager because I keep taking the owner's role. And God is patient. He's working with me. One of those, actually it's 4 of them: Ethan, Judah, Elizabeth, and Charlotte Clark. I'm a parent of 4. Parents in the room, I think you feel me when I say this. I am very concerned that they grow up well. I am passionate about it. I very much want them to grow up with good job skills. I want them to grow up with good interpersonal skills. I want them to grow up to be good dads and good wives and good workers. I want them to grow up to serve the Lord. But here's the reality. I can't make them do any of that. I can't. I've tried. It doesn't work. 2 of them are so big, I can't physically make them do anything anymore. It's a waste of effort. And parents, let me tell you this, and I'm right in the middle of it, okay? So I'm speaking to myself. This is boomeranging back to me. If you think you can make your kids become who you want them to be, just the act of trying to make them do it will turn them against you. Because that's not your role. Your job is to manage the resources provided to you. Your job is to teach that kid the right way, but you cannot make them grow up a certain way. You can't make them, the old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And you never stop caring, you never stop trying, but you can't force it. Here's the other thing that's hard for me. Now this is hard, I'm going to say, for almost every pastor around the world. Huge problem for me is this church. Because I'm accountable to God for this group of believers. You think I don't know? A big chunk of your theology is filtering through this head. I better be careful of what I say. And as pastors, we collectively, we have so much tied up in this place being healthy that when the attendance numbers are not where we think they should be, we take it personally. Like I've somehow failed God. And I have to force it to happen. If the giving numbers are because the bills go up and it doesn't match, I'm like, I blew it, God. I missed it. And you start to force things to happen. You start to worry about stuff that's out of your control. But I can't. This isn't even my church. It's his church. Long before I was here, it was his church. When I'm gone, it will still be his church. I can't control the outcomes. Outcomes are for owners. I can only control my effort. Let me finish with this. I want to go back to what Jesus said because there's something so important for you here that's going to help you. He said, don't worry about the stuff that's out of your control. Out of your control is out of your lane. You're wasting your energy. And notice what he says. He said, these things, these worries, the stuff that you can't make it happen even if you tried. He said they dominate the thoughts of, what is this word? Unbelievers. They dominate the thoughts of unbelievers all over the world, but you, right? Your Father. You see the contrast he's getting? Here's the difference. If you are an unbeliever, of course they dominate your thoughts. Because there's no God to fix stuff. It's just you, baby. Of course. But he draws such an important contrast. And if you'll allow me to read between the lines here, I feel like he's saying to that crowd and every group of people who's read this passage since, he's saying, don't you remember that you have a Father who's good? It's not up to you. Unbelievers stress about this because they don't know God. Unbelievers stress about this because they don't understand that he's a good Father, but you know better. And so ultimately the way to fix this is not by just trying hard in another, it's by remembering. God is good. God is the Father. He's the owner. I'm just a manager. And there is peace in that. But there's also efficiency in that. And when I breathe my last breath on this planet and I stand before God, I don't want him to say, Chris, I really wish you would have spent more time just being a human and you would have let me do the God stuff. You wasted so much time. I don't want that. I really want him to say, hey, I know you messed some stuff up, but you know what I'm proud of? When you realize I was in charge, you let me be God and you were just Chris. That's so much what I wanted. Good job. Bring it in. Let's hug. That's what I want. That's what I want for you. So don't get out of your lane. Leave outcomes for the owner and you just focus on effort. Put it in the right place. Trust the end result to God and things will go well for you. Hey there, just wanted to take a minute to say thanks for watching. If a friend sent you this link, it's because they believe what we talked about today is going to make a positive impact in your life. And if it did, there's probably somebody that you care about who could benefit from it. So take a minute to share this video with somebody. Post it to your timeline or send them a direct link. And if you're able, take a minute to give using the link at the bottom of the description on this video. One last thing. Maybe you feel a tug at your soul and you're ready to take the next step in your spiritual life and form a relationship with God. We've got folks here who would love to talk with you about it. So just text prayer to the number on your screen and we'll follow up with you. It's also in the description on this video in case that helps. Thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.